We are talking about little Nadia Jane Challita. Her life was taken by her father's girlfriend, Amanda Lee Hughes. Hughes is a former preschool teacher who confessed to drowning her ex-partner's 4-year-old daughter, has been convicted of rape and murder. On Thursday, Hughes appeared in the High Court in Johannesburg, South Africa. Hughes was arrested in 2023 in connection with the death of her stepdaughter, Nadia Jane Challita. She faced 2 counts of rape and 1 count of murder. The 4-year-old girl was drowned in a bathtub inside the apartment Hughes shared with her father, Ellie Challita. Although Hughes initially pled not guilty and maintained her innocence throughout most of the trial, she later admitted to killing Nadia Jane, following an emotional charged dispute with Challita over his infidelity. Hughes told the court she had been suffering from borderline personality disorder at the time, but insisted she was fully aware of her actions. She also described multiple failed attempts of taking her own life after the incident. The accused denied the rape charges, claimed she had no knowledge of those allegations. Will they find her guilty? During the proceedings, Macabella stated that Hughes' admission made it unnecessary to review the evidence presented on whether the child's drowning had been accidental. The accused's latest admission is an admission that she drowned the deceased by sitting on top of her, and further that the drowning caused the deceased's death. Macabella noted that Hughes' belated admission is encouraging, with the scientific and medical evidence presented by the forensic pathologist who conducted the post-mortem examination. They said the admission met all the elements of murder. The judge highlighted Hughes' continued denial of the rape charges, before ultimately finding her guilty on 2 counts, 1 each for rape and murder. Following the verdict, Hughes' lawyer requested a postponement to allow the defense time to prepare for sentencing proceedings. State Prosecutor Bernard confirmed an agreement on a sentencing date and explained that the defense was still awaiting a report from a social worker. May I request that we set a specific date for the report so they can be furnished to the state and the court before.
Courts now, and Amber Lee Hughes will be returning to court in October for sentencing arguments. She has been found guilty of the premeditated murder of 4-year-old Nadia Jane Challita. The court also found a stony-faced Hughes guilty of vaginal acquitted on a charge of she drowned Nadia Jane in January 2023, this after an argument with the little girl's father.
With power for the defense submitted that the murder occurred in a spur of the moment based on the evidence adduced before the court. I disagree. The incontrovertible evidence is that the accused stopped communicating with Mr. Challita at 16:35:04. On her own evidence, she bathed the child at approximately 1700 hours in that fateful afternoon of the 23rd of January 2023. The evidence of Mr. Challita to the effect that it was during that last communication when the accused made the threat to the effect that "you have broken my heart, I will burn yours." The only way the accused could burn Mr. Challita's heart, and as I've already alluded, was through the deceased, since it is common cause that Mr. Challita was not with the accused for the accused to harm him.
She further indicated plans to submit a victim impact report and present expert evidence. "I will lead oral evidence," said Bernard. They postponed the case to October 27th for sentencing. Nadia Jane's father is speaking to the media after the ruling. The father said he was relieved the judgment had finally been delivered following a 2-month delay. "Thank God today we had progress." Ellie welcomed the guilty verdict, but that he was dissatisfied with the court's decision not to uphold 1 rape count, describing the outcome as 2/3 closure. He said that while the ruling brought some relief, it did not change the fact that his daughter had lost her life. "That doesn't bring my child back. Nothing will bring her back. So it's a feeling mix of anger and relief. It's just mixed emotions. When asked if the prescribed minimum sentence of life in prison, Ellie reflected on the limits of justice. Obviously, I'm the parent of the child. The justice that I seek doesn't exist in this world or in this lifetime. We are all humans here. The judge is a human. No one can bring back what is lost. So my real justice won't be in this lifetime or on this earth, but it starts here and it officially started today by the judge finding her guilty. He added that the ruling gave him some comfort moving forward. Maybe this feeling of feeling better is going to build up on me for a bit later. I don't know, but right now I'm still very emotional. So I'm feeling slightly better. I hope this feeling grows on me, but it also can never erase what happened to my child. Ellie stressed that the true victim remained his daughter. The real and initial victim here is my child, who was a human with a name and a character of her own. And she was tortured to death, and she was raped. So as much as I'm the victim, I'm not the 100% victim here.
Criminal defense attorney Mauricio Padilla. Thank you for coming on with us today, Mauricio.
Thank you.
I mean, what's hard about this one is not only is this a family member, we have this person you're supposed to trust, essentially a stepmom who you live with, but it's a teacher who's around kids, and then to commit such a heinous crime. I mean, how do you wrap your head around a case like this?
Well, I mean, listen, one of the things that jumped out at me when I read the multiple articles that I reviewed was I believe that she had threatened to do something to the child previously. So when I heard that, I'm like, well, that means previous to you leaving her in her care, because that's the only way that I could rationalize that. And if that's the case, then imagine the father has to live with the decision that he made to leave her in the hands of somebody that was capable of something like this, even though it's so horrific that I don't think anybody would ever envision that anyone could do that to a child, let alone someone that literally raised that child, because apparently she had been involved in this child's life for a long time. Additionally, taking care of children was her job. She was a teacher, right? So it's very hard to wrap your head around something so horrific. Listen, I've had to deal with cases that involved, child fatalities and children as victims. This is one of the more horrific ones that I've heard in a long time.
I know when I was going through the details and having to look at it, it really is tough to go through. And something you pointed out, the fact that in the past, Amber Lee had made these threats about Nada Jane, saying, I'm going to hurt her, basically to her dad. And I think what's hard with this is when we're in the heat of a moment in an argument, I think almost all of us can say we've said something we shouldn't have said. We've said something mean. But I think it takes it to the next level to threaten physical harm of a child. And I don't want to put blame on the father. He's dealing with more than enough as it is. But those red flags of her making these threats really to hurt this poor young girl, I mean, should they have been looked closely at?
I mean, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say that that's completely out of the norm of anyone saying it in any capacity. So if you threaten a young child, if you threaten a child with violence, that's something that needs to be immediately investigated, and you need to take measures to protect that child. Listen, and I know that in situations that are this horrific, that governments or states, governments, wherever you're at, they like to blame the parent. So I've seen similar situations where they're like, now we're going to charge you because you didn't protect your child and you left her in the hands of someone that was capable of doing that. So I'm sure that avenue was at least investigated by the authorities where this occurred. Listen, it's a very disturbing case, and it's also the optics, the way she looks is disturbing. When you read the headlines of evil teacher and then you look at her, it looks like if she woke up in the morning and someone said, hey, I want you to dress up like an evil teacher, all in black. I don't know what's going on with this lady, but she looks like a villain in a James Bond movie. This is the optics are on another level. She really does look like an evil teacher.
And I totally agree. When I was going through and looking at photos of her too, I mean, maybe it's the fact that she's been convicted in this heinous crime, but she definitely, to your point, looks the part. She looks scary. She looks evil. And I know that's kind of crazy to say, but she has been convicted of one of the most heinous crimes we've ever even talked about. So I guess that's somewhat fair to say. Yeah. And I do want to point out the father in all of this, Ellie, is going through probably, the worst situation of all time. I'm sure he's carrying a lot of guilt with it. And the fact that he has to grieve and mourn and go through all of this, I don't wish that really on anyone. But he had to go through a pretty lengthy trial in all of this too, right? It started back in April. Then eventually we just had a judgment, as they call it, yesterday. And I'm wondering about this too, because originally Amber Lee pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. Then the cases were presented, and then she had a change of plea kind of in the 11th hour. I mean, is that even allowed?
Well, I mean, listen, in almost every jurisdiction that I know of, you're able to change your plea at any moment because all courts are the same. Whether you're in the United States, South Africa, wherever you are, judges, they don't want to work unless they really have to. So they're always going to give you the opportunity to turn a not guilty into a guilty because it's simple. And also, in any jurisdiction, there's a benefit if you claim responsibility, at least at some point. You usually get more credit when you claim responsibility early on and you don't waste the government's time with a prolonged trial, but you still get some type of benefit. I'm not clear what the penalties are, what they could do to her. But like, for instance, like if you're looking at the death penalty in the United States and at some point you claim, you claim that you're guilty, that's one of the factors that they could take into consideration when trying to figure out if it's mitigating or not, or whether or not they're going to pursue the death penalty. I don't know in the jurisdiction where she's at if the death penalty is on the table, but I'm sure that her change of plea was designed to probably put her in a better situation for sentencing, number one. And number two, a lot of times you want your client to plead guilty because you know that you're not going to win, number one. And number two, you don't want to have this needless fact-based trial where now the judge is going to really get to see this evidence, see the forensic pictures of the dead 4-year-old, see all this evidence that eventually he's the one that's going to sentence you. So you want to at least shield your client from putting forth that evidence that's only going to hurt her in the eyes of the judge. So that's probably one of the factors that the court had to take into consideration. And let me tell you something. Judges, attorneys, wherever you are, whether it's here or over there, one of the things that you counsel your client is how to prepare yourself for court and how to look in court. So trust me that the conversation must have been had with this woman about earth tones. She looks like Wednesday. She looks like an adult version of Wednesday.
She does look like Wednesday.
Yes. Yeah. So trust me, somebody must have told this lady not to look like that. And she decided to go into court like that. So
what do you think is the motivation for her to go into court looking like that too? Because some of the outfits you're talking about, she has one, she looks like Wednesday's brother Pugsley. She's in the stripes. In another one, she's in all black, and it looks like Halloween has come early. So what's going on in her mind, if you could infer? Because she pleaded not guilty originally.
Okay, it's very simple. It's like Manson carving an X into his forehead and going to trial, or the Manson followers shaving their head. It's like, that's it. Like, you're going to lose, and now you're going to, you know what? I'm going to own the label of evil teacher. I'm going to own it, and I'm going to be evil teacher, and I'm going to walk in here. And I don't know. Listen, at some point, since I've done serious criminal litigation for 23 years, sometimes you got to step back and you're never going to you can't figure out what these people are thinking. Because at the end of the day, they're not rational. Because at the end of the day, she sat on a 4-year-old until the 4-year-old couldn't breathe in the bathtub. So you can't try and figure out the rationale of someone that's capable of such a hideous crime. But it's very simple. If you're looking at life, death, as serious a case as you can, and you decide to go into court looking like that, it's because you don't care about the repercussions and you want to just fulfill whatever evil legacy you think you have, and you want to just own the title of evil teacher, which I think she's successfully done.
What's interesting about all of this, too, especially when we're talking about the change of the plea, is that initially she went on the stand when she was doing her not guilty plea, said, I didn't do it. Then she switches her plea. Okay, yeah, actually, I am guilty. And the judge points this out. Okay, well, you perjured yourself now because originally you said you didn't do it. When you're changing your plea to guilty, that doesn't make sense then. You basically lied on the stand. I mean, that to me, whenever I hear perjury, first of all, it freaks me out. I don't want to ever get in a situation like that. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I mean, okay, in our system, when you plead not guilty, it's not under oath. You do it usually, through your attorney, and it's not perjury because you didn't take the stand. Apparently, in the jurisdiction where they're currently litigating this, there was an evidentiary hearing where she testified, which you should never have your client testify if you can avoid it in any case, right? Excluding child sex cases where the jury's expecting your client to say that they didn't do it, and if your client doesn't testify, then you lose. But other than that, in my opinion, I don't think any defendant should ever testify. But apparently, maybe in their jurisdiction, you don't have that opportunity and you have to take the stand. The problem is this: if the judge already said, yeah, you already perjured yourself, he's already letting her know you have zero credibility. And listen, I don't know, again, I don't know what the maximum penalty is, but I will be shocked if she doesn't get it. I mean, at the end of the day, I also don't know if judges in that jurisdiction are elected or appointed. But if they are elected, you are a politician. At the end of the day, people don't see judges as politicians, but anybody that has to depend on the public voting them in or out are politicians. And when you have an enormous amount of international pressure and all eyes in the world looking at you, you're going to try and do what people expect of you. So I will be shocked if she doesn't get the maximum penalty.
And the maximum penalty, I did look this up too, because obviously we're here in the United States. This is taking place in South Africa, so it's a little bit different. And death penalty, not on the table for this case. It would be, life in prison. And after the after the verdict was handed down, she's guilty on 2 of the 3 charges. There's going to be kind of a long interim between now, August, and then eventually when she's sentenced in October, which was interesting to me because she faces the maximum life behind bars. What are her attorneys, both sides, doing, kind of preparing for this sentencing?
Well, I mean, listen, you're trying to get as much mitigating information as you can. You're trying to get mental health experts to opine that your client, suffered from various psychiatric or psychological problems. And listen, at the end of the day, every single person that's ever killed somebody ever has something going on with them. That's it. Pretty much anybody that commits murder is not well, and they have psychological, psychiatric problems. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a mitigating factor for the court to take into consideration. But when the judge told her, you already perjured yourself, that's a problem, because if this happens and you say you come out straight out the gate saying, I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing, I suffer from mental illness, that's one thing. But if you're trying to get out of it and saying you didn't do it, and then you switch gears, then it really takes the wind out of the sails of the mental health crisis argument, of the I was not in my right mind. It's just like you're an evil person, you killed a kid, and you're trying to get out of it.
What's so odd to me about all of this, and again, I know the law's more here in the United States than I do in South Africa, but as I've done a bunch of international cases, I see there are a lot of similarities. And one of the things we have here, it's something like not guilty by reason of insanity or not guilty by reason of mental defect or disease. And she did straight admit, okay, yeah, I do suffer from borderline personality disorder, but also said, oh, I was aware of my actions. I mean, that's kind of conflicting to me, number one. But number two, I'm wondering why right from the jump she didn't plead guilty by reason, or not guilty by reason of insanity or something like that.
Right. Well, listen, I mean, people think that they can get out of it. People think that they have a defense. People, a lot of people, when they're charged with something as horrific, they refuse to admit it even to themselves. So they're in a state of denial. It really is an issue for her that she took that stance, that she perjured herself, and now the judge is looking at her saying, listen, I don't believe anything that you're saying. And listen, to be found not guilty by reason of insanity in 2025, I'm not talking about 1980, 1985, where it was a little bit easier. In today's day and age, you got to show that you didn't know what you were doing. For instance, like in the United States, if you don't have like a history of being hospitalized for psychiatric reasons, meaning if you don't have like a 2-week stay prior in a mental institution, you can forget about it. A court is not gonna find you not guilty by reason of insanity unless you have like a pedigreed mental health crisis that involves probably multiple hospitalizations for that mental illness. So those people that commit a heinous crime and all of a sudden for the first time they're saying, oh, I have mental illness, that's not gonna fly. So and I think internationally that's kind of where courts are. So yeah, she could have borderline personality disorder. You know, people have borderline personality disorders that are working, or that are judges, or that are, you know, police officers. But borderline personality disorders doesn't mean that you don't know the ramifications of your actions, which at some level, every single court in the world, if you're claiming that you're not responsible by reason of insanity, they're gonna have to find that you were unaware of the ramifications of your actions.
Exactly. The insanity is so tricky to prove. And I loved your last point when you were talking about how many people suffer from some sort of mental disease, defect, whatever it is, and they're still going about their lives. They're coping with it. They're going to therapy. They're on medication, whatever it is, and they're not killing a 4-year-old girl who they're supposed to be taking care of. I mean, there's a main difference here.
Listen,
now,
she
looking
told
forward
him,
to sentence.
Sorry.
Sorry.
She told him, I'm gonna burn your heart. There you go. Like, that's not insanity. That's like, I'm telling you, I'm gonna burn your heart. So what's the best way of doing that? I'm gonna kill your kid. Like, that's like the number one way you're really gonna ruin his life, burn his heart, is by murdering the thing that he loves the most.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I think we're just both so invested in this case because then you have it right there in writing that she's saying she's going to do that. To me, it's showing premeditation then too, because she's saying, I'm going to burn your heart. This is what I'm going to do. I mean, that was a question actually for the judge too. He said, okay, I got to consider this. Was it premeditated? Was it heat of the moment? Was it a snap decision? I'm thinking that it was, and eventually she was convicted. Does that show premeditation to you?
Super premeditation. I mean, that's like premeditation per se. Like, literally, you said you were gonna do it, and then you did it. Premeditation in this country could be from 1 minute to the next. Like, you don't need to think about it for a day or two. You could. The case law and the courts have determined that premeditation could be as quick as 1 minute, like immediately. So somebody like her that had time to think about what she was doing, she had more than enough time to plan it out, and she told them in advance she was going to do it. So that's clear evidence of premeditation, and I think the court already found that there was premeditation from the article that I read, if I'm not mistaken. The court already made that finding.
They did, yes. I think it was a question mark for a second for the judge, and then easily when we look at that text message or when we talk about the testimony from the father saying, yes, Amber Lee in the past had threatened Nada Jane, I mean, it's premeditation 101.